Today, of course, you saw what happened in the markets. The Dow dropped more than 2,000 points today. Not a typo. Dow plunges 2,200 points. Yesterday and today are the first time ever that the Dow has dropped 1,500 points or more on 2 consecutive days. 1,600 points yesterday, 2,200 points today. The S&P 500 dropped 10% in 2 days. It dropped 6% today alone. Just for context, whether or not you watch the markets, whether or not you have any money in the markets or a retirement account or whatever, just to get a sense of the scale here. I'll give you 2 metrics here to get a sense of the scale. The first one is the circuit breakers. Do you know about this? The markets have circuit breakers that kick in when things go off a cliff. That's a mixed metaphor, but I think you know what I mean. They call them trading curbs, and they're these shutoffs that kick in automatically and basically stop the market. They stop people from trading for 15 minutes when things have gone unbelievably wrong. And where those circuit breakers kick in, like the threshold of how bad it has to be before the circuit breakers kick in, is when the S&P drops 7% from the previous day's close. Today, the S&P dropped 6%. Had we got to 7, we would have hit the circuit breaker. They would have turned the lights out on the market to try to save us from ourselves. That's one way to understand the severity of what's happened here.
All right. Let's talk about Rachel Maddow's latest McDrop. She's calling Trump's tariff plan not just a bad move, but a global disaster. And listen, I'm not here to defend Trump's economics with pom-poms, but when your policy causes the Dow to nosedive 2,000 points in 2 days, that's not strategy. That's a panic button. Maddow's laying it out plain. Markets don't just stumble like that. They face splant. The S&P 500 losing tenths in 48 hours, that's a fire alarm. And circuit breakers, those automatic market kill. Switches kicking in, that's like Wall Street itself going, nope. Shut it down before this turns into 2008 part II. Bottom line, tariffs weren't just bad economics. They were economic napalm, and Maddow's reminding us of the receipts. Trump didn't just play with... But hey, I'm sure it was all part of the plan.
You can see the headline writers scrambling to try to find the right words tonight. Here's the Wall Street Journal front page right now. U.S. stocks plunge deeper, capping worst week since 2020, which again was the pandemic. Trump's tariffs set off 2-day sell-off as recessionary fears mount. More than $6 trillion erased from market. This has been the lead analysis piece on CNBC.com all day. Trump's tariffs are biggest policy mistake in 95 years. This is the lead editorial today at the Financial Times. America's astonishing act of self-harm. I thought the picture of Trump there actually kind of puts a nice punctuation mark on that. Look what we've done to ourselves. Hi. But this is the lead, quote, if it endures Donald Trump's decision on April 2nd, 2025, to enact sweeping tariffs on U.S. trade partners, will go down as one of the greatest acts of self-harm in American economic history. His actions will wreak untold damage on households, businesses, and financial markets across the world, upending a global economic order that America benefited from and helped to create. Elsewhere in the FT today, they described Trump's actions as, quote, strangely self-sabotaging, quote, economic lunacy that might seem better explained by psychologists than economists. Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary, says, quote, this is to economics what creationism is to biology, what astrology is to astronomy, what RFK thought is to vaccine science. The Wall Street Journal summarizes tonight, quote, the Dow Jones Industrial Average became the last of the 3 major financial indices to enter a correction, defined as a decline of 10% or more from a closing peak. After today, the Dow is down 14.9% from its most recent high. The Nasdaq is now a bear market, off 22.7% from its recent high. Anything more than 20% is considered a bear market. The Magnificent 7 stocks, which include NVIDIA, Apple and Amazon collectively lost $1.55 trillion in market capitalization this week. That is a record. Apple alone saw $443.5 billion in market value evaporate.
Okay, so let's break this down. Trump's 2025 tariffs just cost the U.S. over $6 trillion. That's trillion with AT. You could literally buy Apple, Amazon, and still have enough left over for a small moon. Experts are calling it self-sabotage. Irrational. And headline writers? They're reportedly just staring at their keyboards in despair. Disaster feels too small. Meltdown doesn't quite cut it. What do you even call the worst policy mistake in 95 years? We're talking a full economic faceplant. Dow's down 14.9, Nasdaq is officially in a bear market, down 22.7s, and major tech stocks, they just vaporized $1.55 trillion in value in a week. That's not a market correction. That's not a market correction. And remember, this wasn't a war, a pandemic, or a natural disaster. This was a policy choice. Trump walked into the economic kitchen, poured gasoline on the stove, lit a match, and said, "Trust me, I got this." But hey, at least the front page of the Wall Street Journal finally has something exciting to write about, right?
I mean, it is hard to get your head around how much damage this one man can cause. I think it's even harder to get your head around simultaneously the fact that he can do damage of this magnitude with such a teeny tiny amount of thought. Right? You think it would take like a grand plan and some big brains to figure out how to destroy the economy of the richest nation on earth. But that's not how it's working out. Turns out it doesn't take a big idea or a lot of big brains working together. I know that this may be something that you remember, but just in case it's not, I'm just going to put this back on the front page here just for a second. Because do you remember where Trump got the tariff thing from in the first place? Do you remember like when and why and how we started talking about tariffs in the first place? It was in his first campaign for president. Trump didn't really have any formal economic advisors. So he told his son-in-law, Jared, to find him an economic advisor. Trump reportedly gave Jared some vague ideas of what his thoughts were on economic issues. You know, something, make me look tough, China bad, something. Jared then decided to find his father-in-law a financial advisor for his presidential campaign by going on the Amazon.com website and starting to browse books.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the most expensive Amazon impulse buy in history. Forget air fryers or neck massagers. Jared Kushner read the title Death by China and said, "Yep, this is our entire economic strategy now." This wasn't some multi-phase Pentagon-level operation. No, Trump's tariff policy, aka Operation Winging It, was cooked up like a late-night tweet storm. No depth, no planning, and no adult supervision. Casinos is a transferable skill. And the best part? This wasn't just dinner table talk. These vibes became real policy. One guy, one armed with nothing but an ego, a son-in-law, and a book title managed to slap the U.S. economy with more damage than most foreign adversaries dream of. 6 trillion gone, markets in chaos, and most foreign adversaries dream of. America learning that economic power can, in fact, be turned off like a light switch. If you elect a guy who confuses policy with improv, so next time you're doom-scrolling Amazon at 2 a.m., just remember, someone once did that and accidentally set global trade on fire.
Trump administration crafted its tariff policy. That's where Trump came up with the tariff idea. Circulating a fake memo from a fake person with a fake email address in order to make it look like this was a serious issue being debated by real experts. That is the intellectual basis on which Donald Trump today wiped $6 trillion of wealth out of existence and crashed America's markets and brought America and the world to the brink of a self-inflicted, on-purpose, global Great Depression along the lines of what we had in 2008 and what the pandemic inflicted upon us in 2020. This time, the global disaster is Donald Trump's big brain.
So, let me get this straight. Trump's tariff policy was built on a fake memo from a fake expert, I mean, why stop there? Why not consult a magic 8-ball or take advice from a fortune cookie while we're at it? Look not so good, boom, that's policy, baby. This is the presidential equivalent of turning in a book report on a book that doesn't exist, written by an author you made up, and still giving yourself an ow. And somehow nobody flinched until $6 trillion vanished into the economic ether. Trump promised to run the country like a business. He just forgot to mention it'd be one of his businesses, meaning it would hemorrhage money, alienate investors, and be managed by a staff picked from the deep end of a Facebook comment section. Now we're here. Markets spiraling, global stability rattled, and polls showing more regret than a guy fiery neck tattoo. All because our tariff strategy was essentially economic fan fiction, ghost-written by ego and signed off by the invisible man. Honestly, if this administration had a motto, it would be, making it up as we go, but confidently.
Donald Trump may think it's all going to work out. The American people are awake and well aware that this is not going to work out. New Reuters Ipsos polling, to which I would like to bring your attention. Do you approve or disapprove of Donald Trump's handling of his job as president? Disapprove by a 10-point margin. Do you approve or disapprove of how Donald Trump is handling the economy specifically? Disapprove by a 15-point margin. Do you approve or disapprove of how Donald Trump is handling the issue of international trade? Disapprove by an 18-point margin. Do you approve or disapprove of how Donald Trump is handling the issue of your cost of living? Disapprove by a 27-point margin. Is the Trump administration competent or incompetent at running the federal government? Incompetent by a 20-point margin. Is the Trump administration competent or incompetent at rolling out new economic policies? Incompetent by a 25-point margin. Is the Trump administration competent or incompetent at downsizing government without affecting vital services? Incompetent by a 25-point margin. That's before the markets did what they've done in the last 2 days.
All right, folks. Great news. The American people have spoken, and the consensus is clear. Donald Trump's economic policy has the approval rating of a root canal done at a gas station. Disapproval margins of 15 points on the economy, 18 on trade, and a soul-crushing 27 on cost of living. That's not just a bad Yelp review. That's a full-on do not return warning from the nation. At this point, if Trump walked into a grocery store and said, "Don't worry, I've got a plan to lower prices," the avocados would raise their prices in protest. And let's talk about the administration's talent pool. If the federal government were a cruise ship under Trump, the captain's chair would have been filled by whoever could yell, "You're fired," the loudest during the lifeboat drill. Incompetence wasn't the bug. It was the feature. Implementing economic policy with this crew was like asking a raccoon to do your taxes. Loud, messy, and somehow you end up owing $6 trillion. So yeah, the public disapproves. Shocking, I know. Turns out turning the government into a reality show doesn't end with a confetti cannon. It ends with people unable to afford eggs and screaming into a gas pump. But hey, who needs competent leadership when you've got catchphrases and hats? Anyway, let me know what you think. Like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. It helps us, it helps the mission, and it helps bring honest conversation to the table.